This week on Christian World News, a safe haven amid a humanitarian crisis. How a church in Mexico is reaching refugees trying to make it to America.
Plus, after a massive hurricane devastated this Florida church, hundreds of volunteers rallied to help rebuild. Today, the Lighthouse Church is still shining its light.
And training up young men to walk in the way of Christ. How Promisekeepers is returning to its roots to reach the next generation. Hello. Welcome, folks, to this week's edition of Christian World News. I'm George Thomas.
And I'm Wendy Griffith. A God-given dream. That's what led Gustavo Banda to start a small church in Tijuana, Mexico. He
and his wife never imagined it would become a refuge for tens of thousands of migrants seeking freedom in America. Yet, that's exactly what happened. 6 miles from Tijuana and a short distance from the U.S.-Mexico border lies one of this city's poorest neighborhoods.
This area is on the outskirts of the city. Not everyone knows about it. Not everyone wants to come here either.
It's easy to see why. There are no paved roads. The hillside is strewn with garbage. There's no sewage system here, and crime is rampant.
When we moved here, there were only cows, horses, chickens, and people with a lot of needs.
In 2011, Gustavo Banda and his wife, Zaida Gulen, moved to Canon de Alacran, or Scorpion's Canyon, after hearing from the Lord in a dream.
It was a clear mandate from God to move here, even though there was absolutely nothing in this place.
Teachers by trade, the Mexican couple were touched by the overwhelming needs of the community. Most folks here were poor subsistence farmers.
God gave me a dream that I had to build a church. We worked for 8 months, day and night. We knew God was going to do something special, but nobody had a clue about what really was going to happen.
That year, Templo Embajadores de Jesus, or Ambassadors of Jesus, was born in the heart of Scorpion's Canyon. Banda held services on Sunday, then hit the rugged roads the rest of the week, going house to house, ministering to physical and spiritual needs.
We shared the love of Jesus with them. It was a mandate from God that we had to go to the poor.
In 2016, that focus drastically changed when thousands of Haitians, escaping poverty and back-to-back natural disasters, began to carve a dangerous 7,000-mile path to the U.S.-Mexico border. Many landed on the church's doorsteps, less than 30 minutes from the San Isidro border.
Within months, 22,000 Haitians had arrived in the city of Tijuana.
The church became a place of refuge.
I did not know, nor did I ever imagine, that there would be so many people in the church.
Since then, Banda has opened his church doors to migrants from all parts of the world.
It started with migrants coming from Haiti, Africa, Pakistan, and the Middle East. Today, we mainly have people from El Salvador, Guatemala, Ecuador, Nicaragua, Colombia, and some from Mexico. It's hard to tell, but we estimate about 35,000 people have come through the church, easily.
1,200 were staying in the church the day CBN News visited.
We feed them 3 times a day. We try to help them with all their needs. At nighttime, the entire church becomes one big giant dorm, where everyone sets up their beds on the floor, and sometimes there's no room to even walk on the floor.
Redding Castillo from Honduras has been here for 4 months. He says gangs killed his father and threatened to take his life as well.
Thank God that I'm not in danger anymore. They are not sending me the threatening messages like they used to.
24-year-old Jacqueline Ortiz from Guatemala is here with her 2 girls.
I'm so thankful to God because if these doors of the church weren't open, I don't know where I would be. I don't go hungry here. My daughters don't go hungry. We have a warm place, we have a roof, and all thanks to God and to the people that help us.
Most migrants stay here an average of 6 months before trying to legally cross the border. Church volunteers run a school for the children, oversee computer training, and provide other skills that will help migrants prepare for their new life in America. Area churches and NGOs also pitch in with food and other essential supplies.
The most important thing for the migrants to know when they get here is that there is hope, and although they have left their families behind, all of us that are here have become their family.
Come Sunday, everyone picks up their bed and dresses up for a lively church service.
I know that I only have a little bit of time with them, so my job is for them to know as much as they can about Jesus, baptize them, and send them to the United States believing in Jesus.
Pastor Gustavo started the church back in 2011 with no idea that he would be housing thousands of migrants from around the world. So today, 10 years later, a new structure is going up, which will be the future home for the migrants. He once had a desire to be a missionary to Haiti. Not anymore.
I even started learning a little bit of their language, but when I wanted to go to Haiti, Haiti came to me. And after Haiti came, all the other nations started coming to this place. I don't have the numbers, but for years we have been baptizing so many of them, and many more are surrendering to Jesus. And that's my calling now.
Can you imagine? He had a dream to be a missionary, to go to Haiti, and Haiti came to him. And not just Haiti, the entire world. 30,000+ people have come through his church.
Only God.
Yeah, only
That's a God story.
For sure.
Love it. Well, turning now to the historic floods that are devastating southern Brazil. In the state of Rio Grande do Sul, officials report at least 150 people have died. Weeks of heavy rain affected more than 2 million people in 446 cities and towns. More than 600,000 people are displaced from their homes now. A team from CBN's Operation Blessing is on the ground working with local churches to provide food and other essentials.
In the aftermath of horrific floods that have affected the southern part of Brazil, in Rio Grande do Sul, to be specific, hundreds of Brazilians have teamed up to support each other. And in this church of Asunción, the volunteers have teamed up to start cooking and preparing meals for their brothers and sisters in the affected communities. Operation Blessing is now supporting this kitchen and their efforts. And as you can see behind me, the chefs are preparing meals, warm meals that will go to the families that are not only living at home in precarious situations, but also in shelters.
The team has provided at least 3,000 meals so far, and they look pretty good, George.
Yeah.
Operation Blessing is also distributing hygiene and cleaning kits to disinfect water and help people clean up their homes. A medical team is providing care to people in shelters and distributing medicines.
Yeah. Here in the U.S., it's been 5 years since Hurricane Michael devastated Florida's Panhandle, including Lighthouse Church in Panama City Beach.
Today, it stands as a testament to perseverance. Brody Carter brings us the story of recovery and faith in action.
The scars from Hurricane Michael, a Category 5 hurricane, are still seen here in Panama City Beach, Florida, even 5 years later. Here are the remains of the original Lighthouse Church building. Now, just a concrete slab that once supported a growing congregation.
And when you're in Florida, if it's a 3, you don't worry about a 3. But when it went to a 5, I said, okay. So we packed everybody up and we evacuated.
The first Category 5 storm to strike Florida's Panhandle. Michael became the most powerful hurricane to make landfall in the U.S. It claimed 59 lives and caused an estimated $25 billion in damage.
Sadly, I have to go get a demolition permit to take down the remainder of the building.
Pastor Cole Bailey leads Lighthouse Church. It used to be located in Panama City Beach. That is, before the storm caved in its roof.
This is one classroom. This will be the east side classroom. I have never been through anything like that in my life. There was no comparison. When Michael came through and it ripped off 100,000 roofs in an hour or whatever it was, these numbers were insane. We knew we were in big trouble.
After 24 years of serving this community, Hurricane Michael took everything except the ground it stood on. Its foundation in faith, however, remained unshaken.
Just days after the storm hit, and we're all still just in shock. I get a call from someone from Operation Blessing.
That led to a partnership which mobilized volunteers bringing chainsaws, hot meals, and a spirit of perseverance. Pastor Bailey saw it as the power of faith in action.
They came in with resources that blew our minds. They came in with hundreds of volunteers. Just at one location, we were able to serve 38,000 hot meals after that storm. One location. We lost count at our other location at 20,000 meals. Resources are coming in. Equipment is coming in.
Stephanie Robinson has been part of Lighthouse since it started in 2000.
I knew God was going to move, but it's hard to see in that, that devastating time of just everything that God had kind of built just plummeting. And but it was amazing to watch the community and family of God just immediately step in.
Despite the storm, Stephanie says the church found its true strength in the faith of its people.
If the Lord didn't save you from it, He's gonna bring you through it.
Today, the new building stands in a renovated movie theater across the bridge in Panama City.
And it is a beautiful picture of God taking the destruction and bringing something out of the ashes, really and truly, and just exploding here.
But this church, right here, is so thankful for when Operation Blessing landed on our property. It helped us through the hardest time of our lives. I cannot express to you how life-changing and how powerful that ministry is.
The story of Lighthouse Church is a bright example of how a church body can suffer well, believing that God can and will use the storms in this life for His glory, if we allow Him to. Reporting in Panama City, Brody Carter, CBN News.
Thank you, Brody. Coming up, see how Promisekeepers is returning to its roots.
Welcome back. The threat of an armed gunman stopped a service at a Louisiana church. A 16-year-old with a weapon disrupted a First Communion service at a Catholic church in Abbeville. The suspect never appears on camera, but you can see people get up from their seats as clergy crouch behind the altar. Parishioners confronted the gunman and called police. This just days after a man at a Pennsylvania church pointed a gun at the pastor during service. Look at that. Congress recently approved $400 million for security at houses of worship.
Violence at anti-Israel protests on college campuses has some asking how to restore civility in America. A new leader of Promisekeepers believes he has an answer. Shane Winning says the ministry can reach young men in great numbers returning to its roots. Gary Lane has more.
Recently, the country has seen thousands of college students march in pro-Palestinian protests, many of which have turned into vehicles for hate and anti-Semitism.
What we're seeing is a generation of people who are being shaped and molded by the world because of the things they see on social media. And so you see these worldly examples of people who are rising up and they demonstrate worldly masculinity, which is perverted in many senses, which is more about dominion and it's less about, godly characteristics.
Evangelist Shane Winnings, a former law enforcement officer, now leads the ministry founded by former University of Colorado coach Bill McCartney. Now in its 34th year, Promisekeepers seeks to transform men through faith in Jesus Christ. How do we help young men become courageous, to be men of integrity, especially if they haven't been taught that respect, integrity at home?
Yeah, we need to be the voice of that movement, of the movement of integrity and purity and godly truth, and also be the example.
Winnings believes today's young men need role models, something he found in Jesus and by serving in Afghanistan with the U.S. Army's Special Forces.
When you're around people who are great, it makes you want to be great. And at that level, mistakes can cost human lives. The sobering reality that life, is short. It's a wisp of vapor, the Bible says. Tomorrow is not promised. And so that really fuels my charge as I lead this organization, is that we can't count on tomorrow. We need to impact the men of our nation and our world today.
One way Winnings is moving Promise Keepers forward is by returning to a successful formula from the past.
Promise Keepers is known and remembered for these big, men's conferences in stadiums and arenas around the country, and we're going back to our roots in that sense.
A conference featuring Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA is scheduled for this summer in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Does that mean Promise Keepers is becoming a bit more political?
Yeah, that's a great question. Absolutely not. We've platformed athletes, we've platformed people from so many different spheres of influence. I believe Charlie has been extremely effective at reaching this generation with truth. He is a Bible-believing Christian, and he reaches this generation in a way that many people don't.
A legacy that Winnings believes Promise Keepers can continue by reaching this new generation for Jesus Christ. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Thanks, Gary. Up next, support for Israel is dropping among young Christians in America. We'll tell you why. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. As Israel's war against Hamas continues, some of the Jewish state's strongest supporters are evangelical Christians here in the U.S.
New research, however, shows that support is slipping among younger evangelicals. Paul Strand has reaction from Jerusalem.
As recently as 5 years ago, 2/3 of young American evangelicals fully supported Israel, while only 5% backed the Palestinian cause. The latest polling shows, though, since then, that support for Israel has plunged to just 1/3, while support for Palestinians is up to 25%. We asked Jerusalem Post commentator Professor Gil Troy what he makes of this startling drop-off in support for the Jewish nation.
So is this poll a warning sign? Absolutely. But is this a time to panic? Absolutely not.
Gil Troy points out a vast majority of Americans, including evangelicals, still back the Jewish nation.
80% of Americans are supporting Israel. God bless the evangelical community, because we've seen for decades how stalwart the evangelical Christians have been, and we really feel a brotherhood and are very, very grateful.
Part of the change in young evangelical support comes because they have moved away from pro-Israeli media and toward mainstream and social media that Troy warns persistently portray Israel as an oppressor and an aggressor nation.
Beware of poison sources, of TikTok, of social media, of reducing a very complicated conflict, which has its dimensions, to a soundbite or to a tweet. We now call it an X. Go and learn. Plunge into the conflict. I am confident that we have truth on our side.
What do youth consistently hear from anti-Israel sources?
It's Israel the bully against the small Palestinians, when of course the Palestinians are part of a broader Arab world, part of an Iranian axis, which has billions, which targets little Israel.
Troy says if young people will take the time to research unbiased, balanced sources, they'll find that many Hamas and Palestinian supporters back genocide against the Jewish people and wiping Israel off the map, and more.
When our young people take a plunge in and see the truth and get beyond some of the propagandizing of some of these oversimplified professors and these influencers on TikTok, they'll see that this is a civilizational battle. Israel, the Jewish people, Zionists, Americans, liberals, conservatives, it doesn't matter who, we're all together defending freedom and defending equality. That's who we are. That's our fight today.
Israel may well become much less of an American priority, and that could mean this strong U.S. ally and the Middle East's only democracy might receive much less American military aid. Troy, though, shares a more optimistic view of the future.
If you look at polling over the last 30, 40 years, the older you get, the more pro-Israel you are. You tend to grow into that. And the more you distance yourself from some of the propagandizing that's going on college campuses, the more pro-Israel and pro-America you are. And that's the two strands of the DNA, pro-Israel, pro-America together. And once our young people understand that, once our young people see how our fates are intertwined, it's not only that we have a common enemy, but we also have a shared fate and shared values and a shared future.
Only time will tell which view comes true. Paul Strand, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Finally this week, a statue of the late Reverend Billy Graham now stands inside the U.S. Capitol.
The bronze likeness of the evangelist who preached to millions and advised a dozen presidents was unveiled in Statuary Hall. CBN's Tara Mergener was there.
The decision to place Graham's statue in the Capitol comes after nearly a decade of efforts by North Carolina lawmakers and reflects his profound impact on American society. Crafted by a North Carolina artist, Graham is depicted in a moment of reflection, holding an open Bible, a symbol of his commitment to sharing the gospel. Inscribed at the base are the Bible verses John 3:16 and John 14:6.
He believed the Bible cover to cover. He didn't understand it all, but he certainly believed it all, every word of it.
Born and raised in Charlotte, Graham's journey to faith began as a teenager.
Man cannot be saved by bread alone.
Throughout his life, he preached to approximately 215 million people and counseled world leaders and U.S. presidents. In 2018, Graham died at age 99.
My father, first of all, would have felt uncomfortable because he would want all the attention to be given to Jesus Christ, not himself. But I'm grateful that this statue, for years to come, will be a reminder to future generations of the importance of God's word.
But my grandfather was just a farm boy from North Carolina who was obedient on God's calling on his life, and that was to teach the gospel simply.
As part of a broader effort to replace controversial figures, North Carolina chose history's most widely heard Christian evangelist.
And even as he preached to hundreds of millions and ministered to and walked with presidents and kings, what we love about Billy Graham is that he exemplified Christ's humility. Reverend Graham humbled himself to care for the poor and prisoners, the forgotten, the lost, and least of these, exactly what the Scripture tells us to do.
All to thee, my blessed Savior, I surrender.
Graham is one of the few private citizens to hold 3 of the highest honors from Congress: a Congressional Gold Medal, to have laid in honor at the Capitol, and to have a statue commissioned for the Statuary Hall collection. On Capitol Hill, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Yeah, what a legacy. Yeah, beautiful.
So happy to see that.
Yeah, congratulations to them.
Well deserved.
Folks, that's it for this week's edition of Christian World News.
Until next week, from all of us here, goodbye and God bless you.